Hey guys, so this video is going to be quite a bit different than what I had intended to do with this channel. I don't expect this to be regular unless it's a hit, or I have something else really important to say, but this feels really important. It feels like a really important moment. So I don't know if y'all watched the Democratic debates last week, but they were kind of a mess, to say the least, between the absolute just like screaming match the second night. And I mean, both nights were a little ridiculous. Emotions were too high. I mean, I just don't get it. Emotions and platitudes do not make a good president, but the point. You may not have heard of him, but the second night there was an outsider at the debates. His name is Andrew Yang. He has been running for president since 2017. That's right. He's been running for president since 2017. And he was silenced by MSNBC. Like, he was able to speak for 3 minutes out of 2 hours. He got the least amount of speaking time, the least amount of questions asked, all of it, than any other candidate. And he's, out of the 20 candidates that were in the debates, he was ranking about 7 to 8 out of 20, and he got the least time, the least questions. He has the most policies of any candidate. If it had just been that night, I could have written it off as something else. But if I'm able to, if I can figure it out, I'm gonna include some stuff here that shows what MSNBC has been pulling for months. They have been trying to ignore him. They have been blackballing him. They have been changing the subject every time he comes up. It is really disturbing that a news organization is trying to have this much influence over our democratic elections. Like, this is the democratic process and you are putting your hands in it, MSNBC, and you should take your hands out. Let the people hear what the candidates have to say and let the people make up their own minds. So he got 3 minutes out of 2 hours. They turned off his mic. Like, I know that they've put out a statement unequivocally denying that they did such a thing. But not only has Marianne Williamson also said that her mic was turned off at points, but we have quite a few expert audio engineers have taken a listen to the debates, and you can hear him if you get some good headphones and crank up that noise. And they've concluded that his mics were absolutely muted. Like, his voice was picked up with someone else's microphone, or they were turned down significantly to where you couldn't hear him. So it felt really important to spread him as a candidate. Power comes from knowledge most of the time, and I really just want people to be able to make educated decisions, like whether you agree with them or not. It's part of democracy to be able to hear what all of the candidates stand for and what they believe in. And so I just want to help give him that chance. So this is everything I know about Andrew Yang and why, after after everything I've seen from him, I plan on voting for him in March. First of all, let me get my laptop so I can make sure all of my things that I'm saying are accurate. The internet is a wonderful place. So while Andrew Yang does not have any elected political experience, he did assist in the Obama White House, and in 2015 the Obama administration selected him as a presidential ambassador of global entrepreneurship, and in 2012 they selected him as a champion of change. So he has been trying hard to improve the lives of Americans for years. And essentially, well, I'll start at the beginning. He founded VFA, Venture for America, which was a nonprofit startup where they essentially wanted to help entrepreneurs start businesses in cities that need work, in cities that need job growth. He worked in Detroit, Cincinnati, a ton of cities all over the country, and that's when he became really familiar with the problems that our economy is facing and that Americans are facing every day. So he likened his work at VFA to pouring water into a bathtub with the hole ripped in the bottom. Basically what that means is he's trying to put jobs into the country. He created thousands of jobs through VFA. But for every job he created, there were many more lost to automation. There was no way he could pump enough jobs into the economy to make up for what we're losing. And that's why he decided to run for president. He saw this problem, and he saw that no one else was going to do anything about it. When you ask a politician what we're going to do about automation and the change of the labor force, the most common answer that you get is retrain the workforce. Well, government-funded retraining programs have success rates of 0 to 15%. So they're not effective. It's not an effective way to go about the changes that our country is going to be going through. Even in the past decade, with all of the manufacturing jobs that have been lost to automation, half of those employees that were laid off ended up leaving the workforce. And out of that, half of them filed for disability. There's a problem, and it's not being reflected in our GDP, because GDP is an awful measurement of the well-being of a country. But I will get to that in a moment. So Yang's Flagstaff proposal is a universal basic income. I believe that this is a better solution for America than a $15 minimum wage because of the automation that is coming. Raising the minimum wage is only going to incentivize corporations to automate faster because they will be saving even more money on labor costs. So you implement a VAT at half the European level, because almost every advanced country has a VAT except for us. You implement a VAT, value-added tax, at 10%, half the European rate, and that will generate about $800 billion. $800 billion plus what the UBI would add to the economy, that stimulation from putting hands directly into consumers' pockets, would almost pay for it flat out, just that. And anything else could be made up for in carbon dividends. There's also the fact that some of the money we're already spending on other welfare programs that people can choose to opt out of, and they'll opt into the freedom dividend if that is better for their situation. Basically, Yang wants to make sure that no one is worse off because of his policies, that these are only benefiting people. So, yeah, it can be almost laughable to think of like every United States citizen getting $1,000 every month just for being a United States citizen. But there's also something really powerful about that idea. I don't know if I've ever been proud to be American, and that makes me very sad to say, but there's a lot of awful things that our country has done. And I can't really say that I'm proud of the way that our country treats its people, with so many people struggling to get by, so many people experiencing poverty, so many people sick and can't afford to pay their medical bills. I'm not proud to be here, you know, I'm not proud that my fellow citizens have to struggle so hard, that I have to struggle so hard. And I really like the idea of your country saying you are worth $1,000 every month because you are a member of the greatest nation in this world. That's powerful. It might make people proud to be American again. I want you to think about how you would spend it, how your family would spend it, how your community would spend it, all the good it would do for you, your family, your community. Hard to wrap your mind around. Because let's say you live in a small town of 10,000, right? Not a very big town. Probably doesn't have a bunch of stores. Probably doesn't have much income. And now think if every single month, every single year, every citizen in that town got $1,000. Now, what is $1,000 times 10,000? It's a lot, right? Yeah, you're tacking on 3 zeros to 10,000, so that would be 10 million. That can't be right. Now I gotta check my own math. Check my own math, because we are the math campaign. So if you have $10,000 and you multiply by 1,000, you get 10 million. 10 million. So every month, that small town of 10,000 people would be getting $10 million pumped into it every month. $10 million that could revitalize the Main Street economy. $10 million to help grocery stores stay in business, to help local stores stay in business, to help the community. Just, God, it could do so much. Most of us know someone or are someone who can't afford to pay an unexpected bill. A UBI would leave over 90% of Americans better off than without, even with the VAT. So seriously, think about how it would change your life. What would you do? What kind of life could you live? What opportunities would it open for you? It's so important. It's so powerful. We could completely change America. I believe that. If you were to give every American $1,000 a month, I think we would see massive cultural change. As people could bring their heads up and worry about their community again, worry about the person standing next to them because they're not struggling to get by themselves. Okay, I will get off my soapbox. But think about it. Even if Yang didn't have UBI as his flagship proposal, I would still support him. I would still support him wholeheartedly because that man is data-driven and his policies show it. My favorite policy of his is his human-centered capitalism. Now, as I mentioned earlier, GDP is an awful measurement for national well-being, and that's because even if our production goes up, which is what the GDP measures, that doesn't tell you where the money's going, it doesn't tell you who has the wealth, it doesn't tell you the distribution of wealth, it doesn't tell you how the American people are doing. So, this proposal is about changing measurements. Instead of using UBI as the sole indication of how we're doing economically, how we're doing as a country, we would use other things. Levels of substance abuse. I will just pull up his policy and read from the list because that is easier. So some of the measurements that he suggests include median income and standard of living, health-adjusted life expectancy, childhood success rates, infant mortality, surveys of national well-being, average physical fitness and mental health, quality of infrastructure, proportion of elderly in quality care, human capital development and access to education, marriage rates and success, deaths of despair index, or substance abuse, basically measuring how many people are dying at the hands of the opioid crisis. Environmental quality, global temperature variance and sea levels, public safety, cybersecurity, social and economic equity. Like, if we measured these things, we could make real change because we could see where the change needs to be made, and not only that, but we could see if the policies that we're implementing, if they actually work. If we were able to track measurements like that, we, if they passed something to try to relieve the opioid crisis, well, now that we're measuring the number of deaths from substance abuse, we could genuinely know whether or not the bill we passed is working. Bringing the focus away from profits and production and back to the well-being of the American people is a change that needs to be made like now. So, Yang's net neutrality policy. That's really important for a lot of reasons. Just pulling it up. I think this is the policy that is why he got shafted at the debate. Obviously I don't know what anyone watching this has heard, but there was basically like Mike Gate, where Yang came out after the debates and said that his mic was off unless he was asked a direct question, which means he couldn't interject, and he got 3 minutes of speaking time and 2 hours. The man is an 8 out of 20 that were on that stage between the 2 nights. He got the least speaking time. He has the most policies. It is blatant and disgusting. Net neutrality would hit companies like Comcast hard. Now, Comcast is the owner of MSNBC and NBC. And Yang's net neutrality policy is much more thorough than most, if not all, of the other candidates. Obviously, he's a very smart man. He knows and understands technology. I think better than most, if not all, of the other candidates. And so his policy, I will include it in a link or a graphic, whichever I can figure out. But here's the gist. On top of keeping ISPs classified under Title II, competition should be increased through local loop unbundling. This would provide startups with access to the expensive final wires connecting the internet backbone to residences so that they can innovate and compete in an otherwise stifled market. By doing so, prices will come down away from their current monopoly levels and thus increase internet access further. So, basically what this means for tech unsavvy people like myself. Basically what this means is that Comcast currently holds local monopolies for things like internet. It's not just Comcast, although Comcast is probably the largest. It's the same thing for certain areas, it's DirecTV. For here in Hawaii, it's Time Warner. They're local monopolies because it's so expensive to access that backbone. But under Yang's policy, startups and small businesses would be able to have access to that expensive wiring, which would increase competition, which means it would lower prices. It would mean that people can choose not to get their internet through Comcast. It would hurt their pocketbooks a lot. And I really do think that's why they didn't let him speak. You know, any candidate that scares big money, I can get behind. His campaign slogan is humanity first, and it's shown again and again and again in his policies. It's about putting people before profits. It's about putting people first. And that's inspiring. I do want to say that I'm open for any questions. I'm more than happy to have discussions down in the comments. You know, obviously everyone's gonna have differing opinions. That's totally fine. I just wanted to give him a voice. Obviously my voice is not very loud, it is not very big, but I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and watch it happen. So, fuck you, MSNBC. You kiss my ass. I hope that this was alright for you guys. I know it's not at all what I normally post, but it's very important to me. You know, the health of our democracy is very important to me. So that's it, that's all I've got. Thanks for listening to my spiel. My inbox, my comments are always open. Please, please, please feel free if you have any questions at all. Thanks.